You're welcome to The Pulse, and we've been talking about Captain Adams Mahama, who was lynched 3 days ago. The whole country has been mourning, and a lot of things are happening in connection to this incident. We'll be going live to Dencho Boase, where my colleague is stationed, and he'll be updating us more on some investigations being conducted by the police. We'll also hear from the police PRO, who is leading a forensic team in that area to get some evidence that can connect to the criminals. But for now, we would have to go to the Kempinski Hotel, where Vice President Dr. Bawumia will shortly be addressing participants at the World Bank Development Finance Forum. We can cross over now and listen to him.
Vice President, I've seen a momentum. And as I hand over to you to make closing remarks, I want to let you know that something started in Accra. Maybe it started earlier than this, but here in Accra, this 2 days, something is happening. And we hope it will be the start, really, of a transformation for our small businesses, for our economies, and for the continent. And with that, let's give a warm welcome to the Vice President, Honorable Bawumia, to give us closing remarks.
Thank you very, very much. Honorable ministers from La Côte d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and participants from many countries, Managing Director, Vice Presidents, and staff of the World Bank Group, members of the Diplomatic Corps, private sector participants, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to, first of all, thank the World Bank Group and for putting this conference here in Accra. And I'm grateful for the privilege to deliver the closing remarks to what I understand has been a very productive conference. On behalf of the government of the Republic of Ghana, I want to reiterate President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, what President Nana Akufo-Addo said when he opened this conference. It is indeed an honor for Ghana to be the first African country to host the third Development Finance Forum of the World Bank Group. I hope you've had an excellent time here in Accra, and I will take the opportunity to invite you individually and collectively back to Ghana for visits and meetings. The conference addressed the important issue of unlocking private investment in African markets. Important because we are mostly agreed that the resources that are needed to finance development in Africa cannot be provided by the public sector alone. In fact, the reality is that many governments across the globe are facing significant financial challenges themselves. The role of the private sector in providing the critical resources needed to finance development in Africa cannot therefore be overemphasized. In government, we are usually preoccupied with creating fiscal space. This inevitably translates into space for more government spending. There's very little talk about creating private sector space. In fact, what you have discussed over the last 2 days has been about creating the space for private sector financing of development in Africa. How do we unlock private investment in African markets? If it is locked at the moment, then we need the keys or the key to open it. You have discussed many of these necessary requirements for unlocking the private investment in African markets, and I am sure many innovative ideas have come out of these meetings. Key among some of these ideas you've no doubt discussed, for the private sector to unlock private investment in Africa is for countries to obtain and maintain and sustain macroeconomic stability. Without macroeconomic stability, it is very, very difficult for the private sector to be encouraged to undertake, a big, investment in any country, whether it's the domestic private sector or the foreign private sector. And the operative word here is sustained macroeconomic stability. We want to see that there's fiscal consolidation taking place, that deficits are put under control, that you have debt sustainability, low and stable inflation, low interest rates, and stable exchange rates. These are the necessary ingredients for a growing economy and for encouraging macroeconomic stability. Macro stability, however, has to be underpinned by microeconomic foundations or by micro foundations. Sometimes we get lost in the macro picture and forget the micro picture. I give you an example of the energy sector in Ghana, for example. The energy sector in Ghana is currently, we are dealing with a debt of about $2.5 billion for the energy sector. We've struggled over the years with power outages. And when you get down to it and you ask what really is the problem, at the heart of that is a micro problem of how does the Electricity Corporation of Ghana collect its bills. And so if you are not able to collect your bills, then how do you pay the people who transmit the energy, and how do you pay the people who generate the energy? Because all of them would rely on you, the distributor, to collect the bills and then pay. So the micro area which will then sustain, because if you do not have proper collection of these bills, you end up with increasing debt, which can then have systemic effects on banks and create macroeconomic instability. And so we in Ghana have decided to have private sector participation in the energy sector, but in particular in the Electricity Company of Ghana, that would also allow much more efficient service delivery. So we are doing this in the context of the Millennium Challenge Account Compact for Ghana. At the micro level also, to maintain macroeconomic stability, we also understand in Ghana, and I'm sure other countries also see so, that the state-owned enterprises of government have to be really watched very carefully. These state-owned enterprises, as we have them in Ghana, are really very significant. One state-owned enterprise, if not properly managed, can collapse the economy. I'm talking of enterprises such as Cocoa Board, GMPC, TOR, and so on. These are major enterprises. We've seen the Electricity Company of Ghana. And so what we are doing is making the point that we have to pay attention to them. Historically, governments have paid very little attention to the management of these very key state enterprises. We normally hear about them when the damage is done, after audit reports years later to say they've lost so much money, and then it's a bit late. The macro implications of what they have done will filter through and adversely affect the private sector. So in Ghana, for example, we announced 2 days ago to the state-owned enterprises that we are going to have regular meetings. The president and the economic management team will have 6 monthly meetings with all the state-owned enterprises where we look at their finances, we look at their projects. We want to make sure we look at their bank accounts and the flows. We want to make sure that we have our fingers on the pulse of what is actually happening in the state-owned enterprises. So we will call the first meeting in July of all the state-owned enterprises so that we can hold their feet to the fire. And we don't want to have a situation where the president doesn't know what is going on. And so we will keep a close eye with them. To also get the private sector working and investing in Africa, of course, the business environment is very key. A conducive business environment is very key in attracting the private sector, and we have to look at how we register our companies, the taxes that we have on companies, the efficiency of our ports, how easy it is to obtain title to land, the payment system, how formalized the economy is. A very highly informal economy is not one that can attract a lot of private sector investment. We need formalization, address systems, national ID cards, and linked databases between government departments, such as passports, police, courts, DVLA, revenue authorities, and so on. We want to be able to take the advantage of the information technology environment to make sure that you have a lot more paperless transactions and therefore you will have a much better service delivery. We want to make sure that there is good governance. Without good governance, the private sector is not going to be knocking on your door. So if you're a very corrupt country, sure, you will have the private sector there, but be sure that they are only going to behave in a particular way and get what they want. What is supposed to go to your country may end up in a few pockets, but you're not going to get the best deal for your country. So we need to have an eye on good governance to make sure that we deal with corruption. And this is why in Ghana, for example, we are setting up a special prosecutor's office for corruption. And this will be done in this quarter in Parliament, where we have, everybody will know that the special prosecutor is waiting for you if you step the wrong way. We need to make sure that infrastructure is supportive of private sector investment. As you all know, there's a lot of infrastructure requirements, whether it's in irrigation infrastructure for agri, telecommunications, roads, water, energy, or railways. The needs are huge. Unfortunately, governments do not have enough wherewithal to finance all of these needs. And this is why we need the private sector to really come in and help. And there are many, many, many deals, if properly structured, will get private sector participation in the provision of infrastructure. And the president of Ghana when he delivered his opening address, said that we are looking to move away from borrowing and borrowing and borrowing to finance projects, to structuring the projects to get private sector participation in them, because that then allows us to keep debt sustainability on course, as well as get more projects financed. But one of the things that I found when we came into government, we've been in government 5 months now, and we went through the different ministries, where are your projects, and so on. We need to put together bankable projects if we are going to attract the private sector. We found that in Ghana, for example, we are in the process of doing so now, and we hope to have a project portfolio for the whole country by the end of next month. And this is something that we've not done. But if you're going to attract the private sector, if I go somewhere to say, come and invest in Ghana, and they say, okay, what should I invest in? What are your priorities? I need to be able to say, here they are, A, B, C, D in each of these sectors. And that is what I think as countries in Africa, we should all be trying to do. I know Cote d'Ivoire has done so, and we should replicate some of those efforts in the more innovative countries who have done so. We also believe very strongly that for the private sector, market size is very important. And this is why we think that economic integration on our continent is going to be very key in bringing in private sector investment, in unlocking that investment. We have 1 billion people, and we should try to make sure that we achieve economic integration, have cooperation. Since we've been in office, we've sent a delegation to the Cote d'Ivoire, for example, and said to the Cote d'Ivoire, I said, you and I, we control over 60% of the world's cocoa production. It's time for us to share our knowledge in this area. And so Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire have some sort of an entente right now in the area of cocoa production, because we say that if the oil-producing countries can have OPEC, we can have COPEC. You know, so we need to share knowledge. We need to share experiences in the continent. And we need to open our markets. We need for goods to be able to move. And this is why I think you should let Mokhtar Diop know that the barriers that he saw in Ghana for customs barriers will all be gone by September 1st. Removing all the internal barriers, and we hope every other country will do so that we can have movement of goods freely. I mean, I asked the simple question, what do these barriers contribute? Well, one would have expected that it would be revenue, right? Customs. Well, when I asked for the data, I saw that, in fact, we were rather losing money. So I said, you know, Mr. President, we have to abolish all these barriers. They are centers for corruption, really, and harassment and prevention of goods and services. And we've got to move all of these. We cannot underestimate the effectiveness of international development finance institutions in helping to de-risk developing economies, which will enable the inflow of private capital. I'm pleased to see that the World Bank Group is demonstrating its willingness to innovate and lead the charge through its latest IDA replenishment and the design of a private sector window. I want at this stage to pay special tribute to Axel here for actually making it happen for Africa. These are some of the unsung heroes of the development story. $45 billion, with $2.5 billion for the private sector window. And this is a 50% increase. For a 50%, that is remarkable. Please give him a round of applause. We thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the last 2 days were a call to action that supports the sea change we need in the global financial system. You have explored solutions, partnerships, and alliances that can connect the opportunities of the poor to the firepower of global savings. I hope your work can catalyze action and results, in particular in scaling up the flow of private sector finance to countries which are coming out of fragile situations or under stress from climate change, disaster, and war. Ghana stands ready to support this agenda as a client and as a shareholder of the World Bank Group. I wish to congratulate you for the success of the Third Finance Forum and wish you all a safe journey home. For those of you who can, I invite you to tour Ghana and experience the goodwill of the people of Ghana. God bless you all, and thank you for your attention.
And that was Vice President Dr. Bawumia addressing the participants of the World Development Forum there. He's been talking about some myriad of strategies the government is employing to improve on our economy. And critical among them, he says that empowering the private sector is very key to his government, and also dealing with corruption and uprooting corruption will also help us improve our economy.